Creepers now. Alright, that was fucking stupid. What's up, Creepers? And Geekers Chris, the Atari Creep. How is everyone doing today? You like this? I brought them out for visual aid because we're going to be talking about the Nightmare in Elm Street, on Elm Street. The nightmare that's on the street of Elm. The Springwood slasher, Frederick Krueger. We talked about... There we go. I was looking for that button. We talked about Jason a while back, and I figured it was time we did another tier list. I did the last one live, but I got a couple other videos I wanna work on to give you an idea of timeline. I'm making this just before making the video showing the controller disc swap from Intellivision to Intellivision. What is that?
With HPE GreenLake, we have access to supercomputing.
You've got to be fucking kidding me. Is that going to happen a lot? Whatever. Whatever. Hopefully I'm smart enough to edit all that out. But regardless, let's tier the Nightmare on Elm Street flicks. We'll move on to something like Halloween. I'm actually going kind of in the order from best to worst, of my opinion, of the slasher flicks, and Jason is number one in my book, which is odd because A Nightmare on Elm Street was for the longest time when I was a kid. But then as I got older, I mean, these films took a fucking nosedive really quick after the third one. But let's get into this. Let's get into this, and please keep in mind, this is how I feel. I'm not saying any movie's better than the other one, okay? In any aspect. I'm just saying this is my enjoyment level of these particular films. By all means, let me know what yours is down below. But they're fucking movies. Let's not fucking fight over stupid shit, okay? The Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I was so excited to go see this. I remember I posted the ticket. Everyone's like, dude, I'm jealous. I want to go see it too. Most people would put it in a fail. I'm going to put it in D. For two reasons. One, because I thought Jack Early Haley, whatever the fuck his name is, I think he did an amazing job. There were talks of Kevin Bacon maybe playing Freddy, and I thought that would have been an amazing idea. I don't think he did a bad job. I think he did... He brought a menace to Freddy that hadn't been there in a long time. The new glove idea, at first, I fucking hated it. I really fucking hated it. But as time went on, I actually want to build one. I used to build gloves back in the early days of the prop trading community. I'll try to find a picture. God, it was before like the cell phone cameras and everything. I'm talking late 90s, early 2000s, okay? And I have templates here to make one, and we will eventually do that. But the design of this glove has grown on me over time. It makes as much sense as the original, if not more. I mean, it's just something the guy whipped up in the fucking shop, you know? So there you go. We're going to leave that guy at 10. And the second reason, we just got to see more Freddy. We got to see some kills. But the execution of everything was garbage. The overuse of CGI was garbage. The story was stupid. The pacing sucked. Overall, it was a fail in comparison to the Friday the 13th remake, which was more of the same with a little bit of extra. So, I liked the remake of Friday the 13th. I did not like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, but I will not put it in a failure because it did a few cool things. Now, my Freddy vs. Jason rank, that's going to be determined on, obviously, I'm ranking it as a Nightmare on Elm Street film, much like I think I did on the Friday the 13th film. I don't remember. I hope I did. I hope I didn't just lie to you. But I remember the hype of this movie. But the more and more I was hearing about it, the more I was like, oh, first of all, the Kane Hodder thing. I mean, I know it's cliche to sit there and say that. And everyone's like, well, Ken Kirsinger did a great job. And you're right, he did. He did an amazing job. And you know what? Good for him. He stepped into some shoes that he knew he was going to get a lot of shit for. And he gained a lot of followers that way. Fans, you know? I don't think it was a bad movie. I don't think it was great. I think There was a lot of stupid decisions made by someone who wasn't a fan. But we finally got to see it, and it was as goofy as it should have fucking been. I'm going to give it a B. I debate on C or B. Freddy vs. Jason definitely, it needs to be in here somewhere, you know, in the top three here. And S, I'm going to consider like the stratosphere. So when I say top three, I mean A, B, C, you know. But I think it deserves it. I think just for the hype alone, I mean, they legit did a weigh-in. Like an old school box in Vegas. They came together, did the weigh-in, sat down, answered questions. Well, Freddy did. But moving on. Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I'm just going to pop it right in here. I didn't like the design of Freddy, though I understood where it was coming from. It was supposed to look like a primordial, well, not primordial, an ancient evil taking on the persona of the character of Freddy Krueger. It wasn't actually Freddy Krueger. It was something more sinister and more ancient. The story was fun. A fun fact: the little kid. You remember that rocket play climb thing in the in the flick at the park, where he was on the top trying to reach for God or whatever. He actually bought that. The kid who played the part. They were tearing the thing down. He ended up getting it. It was in his backyard for the longest time. So that was pretty cool. I didn't like the glove design in this one, though. It was pretty fucking gnarly. Something about the thumb blade just didn't work for me. If it hadn't had that, I bet you I'd have been more receptive to it. The kills, they're okay. I think the ending was where it was at, with that whole surreal, they were still going with the later Freddy psychedelic kind of aesthetic, which is weird because it's Wes Craven here again. And he wasn't really about that, when it came to his creation. But overall, it was okay. It's worth a watch. It's better than a lot of the sequels. I'll give it that. So you know what? Maybe I will move it. No, I'm going to leave it right where it is. I'm comfortable there. Freddy's Dead. Introduced a lot of really good ideas, but I'm sorry, guys. I got to put it here. I got to put it in D. I know a lot of people are fans of this, but the butter knife blades, I can't handle it. And this is where you could tell they absolutely gave no shits about the makeup. They were just like, you know what? We've made a bajillion of these. He's not even fucking scary. He's just like a clown with a burnt face. They just didn't give a shit. I know the chick who directed it, Rachel Tatali or whatever her name is, and she was part of every production of A Nightmare on Elm Street from the first one all the way up. So it was fitting that she finally got to helm a movie. And I applaud her for going the direction she did. She didn't just repeat it. She made like a little mystery out of it. And, I guess Freddy had a daughter. He was married and killed her and didn't go to jail. Why? I don't know. But you're going to find out I don't look at logic anyway in any of these fucking movies, and I don't care. I just want to see some creative slashing from an unforgettable villain, I guess. I don't want to say killer. Villain, All right, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, the baby one. I'm putting that right fucking here. It's overall stupid. It's stupid. It's every cliche that was going on at the time. They even did the aha thing. Kind of, sort of. I mean, they made him into a piece of paper, not so much into the cartoon. I don't know. It was stupid. Again, the glove was garbage. The makeup was garbage. The story was clever. Dreams of an unborn child. I don't understand the aspect of turning the child into another entity of Freddy. But they were just running out of ideas. And you got to, again, applaud them a little bit for keeping a continuity. Alice was a really cool character. I really dug her in part 4. But, yeah, part 5 is where I just stopped giving a shit entirely. Which is weird because I was the kid who wanted to go see Jason Goes to Hell when everyone else was just like, we're just tired of that. And I was just like, no, let's go. Which I guess says a lot about me. So we're in the top 4, the big 4. And I don't think there's one better than the other here. I mean, there is. But I think if you were to experience A Nightmare on Elm Street, this is the final four. This is where you need to focus. And should you want to realm into any of this madness, I mean, Freddy vs. Jason's also a must, but we'll consider that a separate thing. If you wanna play around with the C, D, and F tier, by all fucking means, go right ahead. But you're not gonna miss anything if you don't, honestly. And maybe watch the remake as a morbid curiosity. So part four, which is the one that was really, really, really hyped. MTV was all over this one like flies to a pile of shit. It was during writer strikes. There was no consistency to the story, but god damn it if it wasn't a fun movie. No, I'm not leaving it there. My screen has to be big because of my eyeballs. So I gotta bounce it up. I'm putting it here at B tier. I'm gonna put it here at B tier because it was so fun. It really was. I mean, I know they had to change the character Kristen because of whatever the reasons were behind the scenes. And they killed off that cast from the last movie unceremoniously. We could complain about all that. You know what? So what? So what? There were 3 more kills. 3 more kills. Maybe, again, they were unimaginative. But the idea of a dog pissing on the ground and resurrecting an evil entity didn't bother me. I didn't look into stuff like that. I didn't care about. We're talking about a guy who invades your dreams and kills you. There's a lot about that I'm willing to accept to enjoy the flick. I don't know. When we get to part 2, we're going to discuss that more. And I think you're going to be a little surprised by it. I don't understand how people can't watch a movie with a guy that looks like this and can't suspend a little fucking disbelief and get into the fantasy of it. But part 4, I think, is a solid B. It's not my favorite of the series. But yeah, it's almost A tier. If there was a little bit better story cohesion, it would have gone in A tier. So here we are with A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. This one, I can't even tell you the memories I have of this one. I love the first 2 more as movies, okay? But Part 3 was the one where they established what the character was going to be. That poster, I mean, look at the fucking poster. When I went to the Revere Showcase Cinema to go see something around this time, that cardboard cutout was there, and it was ginormous. I mean, Freddy's head was huge. And it instilled this, oh my god, this is going to be scary as fuck. What is with all these fun characters? I mean, the Nightmare on Elm Street films were more than just slashes. They had characters. They had storyline. You know, you kind of gave a shit about some of these people before they got bumped off. But Part 3, just everything around it, that cardboard cutout, the poster, going to see it. I saw that one in the theaters more times than I think I saw any of the other ones. And one of my favorite memories of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and hopefully this kid hasn't found me, but there was a kid, he's the one who gave me my first NES. He was the one whose parents split up, so they both got him an NES one Christmas. And he gave it to me. He gave one of them to me. I had a big crush on his mom. His mom was beautiful. And she took us to go see Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And I had to sit between the two of them because they were both little scaredy cats where I was sitting there eating my popcorn giggling the whole time, you know? And she was clinching on to me and everything. In 87, when this came out, how old was I? 12? Right at that perfect age where I was like, yeah, I got this. But, of course, I didn't get this, you know. She was an adult, and I was an adolescent. But I thought I had a chance. But that was one of my favorite movie-going memories. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this. But from nostalgia alone and everything that went with it, it was one that my mom only bought me a couple of VHSs. She bought Jason Part 6, Jason Lives, The Blob, the original, and this one. And there was like that trilogy that I kept together of those 3 movies. My mom and I didn't get along too much when I was growing up. And I never had like a true relationship with her. But when little things like this happened, I enjoyed them and I took them for what they were instead of getting pissed off about what I hadn't had from her. I said, you know what? I got these things from her. I got a couple shirts which were the last clothing items she ever bought me. So I got a thermal over there. So I get a little sentimental about stupid shit like that. But with all the memories, the crushes, and seeing this flick multiple times, and seeing how, you know what, Freddy might have started to be funny in this one, but look at the kills. They are so sinister. The dude with his veins being marionetted around the hospital. Yeah, it was silly that he was able to go through walls and everything. Suspension of disbelief. I fucking love this movie. This movie's great. It set what Freddy was. It was finally the one where they said, all right, since we're going forward with this, we need to. 2 was a little like, what the fuck are we doing here? We just know we need to make money. And the first one was good. This is where they actually buckled down. Wes Craven even came back. They brought back Heather Langenkamp. Absolute S tier. Nightmare on Elm Street may not be my favorite of them all, but that motherfucker, bam, yeah, absolutely. So, we're down to the last 2. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Revenge. I saw this one for the first time on... Actually, no, I did see the VHS first. I'm sorry, I do apologize. But there was a drive-in around here called the Starlight, I think. It was on Route 38 in Reading or North Reading. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But they were playing part 1 and part 2. And I dragged my parents. My mom was into scary movies, not as much as me, but she liked sitting down and watching them with me. My dad, on the other hand, it's not that he didn't like them, and he was a minister. He was the type that would look back at me and be like, really? This is what you fucking get off on? All right, kid. Fucking weirdo. But I remember watching part 2 and seeing how sleazy it was. The first one was great. But part 2 was so sleazy. But let me tell you something. Some of my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street moments come from part 2. I didn't think about the whole him being in the real world. It fucking never occurred to me. I didn't give a shit. That whole pool scene is gotta be fucking top tier Nightmare in Elm Street. Freddy Krueger, evil as fuck moment. This dude's like, let me help you. He's like, help yourself, fucker. He just slashes him once and throws him in the fucking fire. And he's just running around, ripping people's stomachs out and just slashing everybody. And the fucking pool is boiling and all the hot dogs are popping. And he just comes out of the drain and walks right through a fucking fireball at the fence and disappears. And everyone's like, what the fuck? I don't care he's not supposed to be in the real world or not. Yeah, that's kind of a glaring issue. But it's fucking amazing. My very favorite A Nightmare on Elm Street moment of all time is in the opening scene when Freddy's walking down the aisle of the bus and you get those 3 people cowering in the corner. And he's just with his blades on every seat as he walks by. And the close-up of the blade just scraping and the way the blade, the glove looks and the sound and the lighting, there was nothing about that exact second that wasn't perfect. I fucking absolutely love that moment. It's one of my favorite moments in all of horror. Just that's, and that's what made me want to wear a Freddy glove. Make them and wear them or buy them if someone else made them. But it was because of that scene. Even though I don't have a glove on now, I can feel the blades. If that makes any sense. And all I have to do is think about that scene. And of course, he goes up and he scrapes the top, and it's just a menacing scene altogether. But you know what? I got to give it to A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. We're not going to put it in S tier, but I am absolutely putting it in A tier. Freddy is just so evil in this one. And it's when he stopped being evil that I stopped giving a shit, really. I know 3's a little bit more of a clown. He's starting to do the quip thing, welcome to primetime, bitch, one of the most famous ad-libbed lines in all of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And, Nightmare 4 was what it was. But Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was the true last evil Freddy. It was just they didn't know what to do with him. I mean, the first movie was so final. They just fucking threw something at the wall and saw if it stuck, and it didn't really stick too well, but enough to make part three, which, again, because of that, I put it in A tier. I think it's a fantastic movie. We don't even have to talk about the undertones, the sexual undertones. I realized that then. I didn't give a shit. It was fucking cool watching him slash that dude in the back. It was what it was. Balls flying in his face. A Nightmare on Elm Street, the very first one. This movie, holy fuck. This movie ignited something in me that Friday the 13th couldn't at the time. You know, it was fresh. It was different. We were kind of starting to get a little fatigued by the slasher thing. Nightmare on Elm Street came late in the game, if you remember correctly. 1984. Friday the 13th came out in 80. Halloween came out in 78, and I believe Texas Chainsaw came out in 74? 2? Somewhere in there. So, Nightmare on Elm Street was so late in the game, but you know what? It took off like fucking wildfire. What an amazing concept. And it was taken from, things that he had seen in the real world. People dying in their sleep over trauma, more than likely. Anxiety, stress, and the heart and everything. You know, it'll wear down the body, and the body will eventually, stop. It'll just say fucking enough, you know? So he took a simple idea like that, thought of a fucking bully and some guy who scared him when he was a child, put it all together with maybe some other influences, and out comes A Nightmare on Elm Street. And what I love about this movie the most is when Tina's scene, when she's going to get killed, not so much the opening scene. I mean, there's nothing like watching the glove being made and hearing him, and, delight and everything. It's just such a sleazy, dirty, scary situation. But when it finally comes time for Tina to be dispatched, that scene, I think, if anyone's going to make horror slasher material, they need to study that entire scene from the very beginning to after the scene cuts, whatever, into the police station. That is the most perfect horror scene of all time. It's a situation that goes bad real fast. And just when it gets super bad, it gets worse. And it just continues to get worse. And it's not forgiven. It's relentless, and it takes pleasure. It takes pleasure in its horror, I guess, and its distribution of fear. It was palatable. You could taste it. And I remember there was such a controversy with this movie that even my parents were like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't see that. Kind of like with the Children in the Corn, it turned out not to be that big a deal. It was just the religious undertones that fucked with people. It was also the height of the Satanic Panic, too. Wink, wink. Same year, 1984. Maybe we'll rank movies by the years. But regardless, I had to sneak and watch this one at my buddy Scott Sullivan's house. And I remember we watched it on a little 13-inch color TV that was on the floor. And we'd just stay like that with a drink and a snack. And his father's, he had like a billiard room. I mean, they made money. He worked for a local newspaper on the celebrity page. He made some money. He had this big room that was a bar, pool table thing. And we watched a copy of it that his brother had rented. And that was it. That's when I knew that the slasher thing was going to be my jam. So we are going to take the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Where do you think it should go? This one's going to piss a lot of people off. I'm going to put it right here. I know it started the whole thing, but Nightmare on Elm Street 3 gets S tier because of all the other things that surround it, not the movie itself. But we're going to put this in perfect A tier because I will say this. Once Tina's done, I do like some of the lead up to the rest of it. It's almost like the movie peaks and then completely drops and then kind of goes and then picks up again. So there's like that middle where it's necessary and it's not boring by any stretch of the imagination, and it doesn't make the movie feel longer than it really is. But the cadence, we were so used to a systematic, every so many minutes someone's going to get cut up. And this movie restrains. It holds back a little bit. It's better for it, I'll say that. But I think after Tina gets it, it's kind of like, all right, whatever. And then Tina gets smashed and then gets killed. So there we go. A Nightmare on Elm Street ranked. I hope I didn't babble too fucking much. I love this series. The first four, anyway. I legit hate the rest of these. They could have all been in F tier, but I wanted to be fair. I really did just want to be fair about it. So, regardless of how I feel, seriously, tell me what your ranking is down below. Do a response video. If I remember correctly, I will try to put the link to this tier. It was a pre-generated thing down below so that you can click on it, maybe do your own. But A Nightmare on Elm Street was very formative for me when I was growing up. It was those top two, and then Jay and Michael just kind of hung out over here, But once you got past the fourth one, yeah, I was still entertained. I still watched them. But once the movies lose their grittiness and the studios come in and polish them up a little bit, they lose what they used to be anyway, and they just don't seem horror anymore. They seem polished and they seem calculated. And it doesn't seem like there's an ounce of heart in it at all. But let me know what your ranking is down below. Feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down. It's all positive to me. Guys, wherever in the world you are, I hope you're doing well. Until next time, take care. Creep it real. And don't fall asleep. I gotta do the cliche thing, right? And bye-bye. Ha ha ha, your mother.